job at the world-famous Mexican-themed restaurant and entertainment emporium, Casa Bonita. If you've never been, it is great. They have this awesome arcade, they have a really nice gift shop, a haunted cave, and a legit indoor working 30-foot waterfall. I started as a puppeteer, writing and performing shows for kids in the puppet piazza. Eventually, I made my way to the stage shows, which took place directly in front of the waterfall. There was the Wild West gunfight, the showdown on the Seven Seas, and my personal favorite, Papa Tamale's Amazing Jungle Spectacular Show, where I would dress up like a gorilla and run around the restaurant stealing people's sopapillas. That was fun. But you couldn't really see out of the eye holes, and they only washed the costume once every 8 years or so it smelled like corn chips and ass. I almost died one night when the actress playing Jungle Jenny missed her entrance, and so I vamped, doing a stupid little monkey dance, didn't see the ledge, tripped, and fell. Well, flailed 16 feet into the water. Suddenly, the 15-pound suit became a 30-pound suit, and I really had to fight my way for breath. When I finally did emerge on the rocks, shaking and in shock, I could hear a voice from above me cry out, "Again! Do it again!" Yeah, Max, look, like the breakdown says, they're only looking for actors of color. I remind them that I am a proud third-generation Mexican-American, that I can trace my roots back to Spain, Mexico, Latin America, parts of the Southwest, and that I am one half Oglala Sioux. If my mother's theory about being switched at an army hospital in South Dakota is true. It's not proven. It's not proven. But it is a theory. Yeah, Max, I hear you, but the thing is, you don't look ethnic, okay? You don't play ethnic. There's a scene in the old film noir movie Touch of Evil where Orson Welles, as a bloated, sinister detective, tells his Mexican counterpart, Charlton Heston, literally in brownface, that he doesn't talk like one. What? A police officer? No, a Mexican. I saw that movie when I was in high school, and that scene really contextualized something that I'd known about myself all my life. That I am severely disassociated from my heritage. I don't speak Spanish fluently. I've only been to Mexico once, and that's when I went to Mazatlan for spring break. I do, however, reserve the right to pronounce it Mexico. And to use magical realism if I should ever see fit. I've been to my fair share of quinceañeras. I know what to order in a panaderia, and according to family legend, my great-grandfather supplied liquor to Pancho Villa. Of course, most Mexican families have some sort of liquor Pancho Villa story. The point is, I grew up in a predominantly white school district. My high school mascot was a farmer, for fuck's sake. That's actually my high school mascot. I received a great education, had a safe and happy childhood for the most part, but that didn't make it any easier to be a brown buffalo on the Great White Plains. That's my senior picture. I learned pretty quickly that camouflage is an incredibly useful tool for survival, because I'll tell you, white people will say the damnedest things when they think you're one of them. In this regard, I have always felt out of place, lost, and like a wandering brown buffalo, always in search of a herd, always in search of a home. A little confused and was ready to think about something else. I was 3 days away from the first rehearsal for The Jungle Book and used the 8-hour flight back to New York to focus on the task at hand. I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. And by that I mean, I had no idea what kinds of disabilities these kids had, to what severity, or even how many kids there would be. My mother worked for over 20 years at a home for abused and neglected kids in Denver. Most of the kids there had intellectual or emotional disabilities, but I always just saw them as other kids. Sometimes, if they were posing a threat to themselves or others, my mother or one of the other aides would have to restrain them, physically. This happened once when we were at the Museum of Nature and Science. She brought me along for a field trip, and one of the kids started screaming and pulling the hair of another child. My mother, cool, calm, and collect, with the seasoned grace of a rodeo professional, leapt on the kid and had him safely restrained in less than 4 seconds. Now, everyone else just kind of paid it no mind, but I had never seen anything like it. I learned a valuable lesson that day. Don't fuck with Mom. About 10 years later, during one of these restraints, a 17-year-old kid would break free from her grip, throw her down on the sidewalk, separating a lower disc in her back and causing her to go on permanent disability. Mrs. Melanie came back into the auditorium and said, "Max, one more thing. I want to ask you about," but before she could finish, a little boy behind her let out a loud, shrill scream. Several of the kids around him brought their hands to their ears, and the boy, whose name I'd later learn was DJ, had tears running down his face and was clutching the side of his head. Melanie got down on one knee so she could be at eye level with him. "Hey, bud, remember how we talked about how unpleasant that is when you scream like that? What's up?" He leaned in and whispered something in her ear. "Okay, is that any reason to scream at the top of your lungs?" "I didn't think so. Can you have a seat for me, DJ?" "Thank you." "Never mind, we can talk about it later." And with that, she went and talked to a group of young girls. Suddenly, I remembered this time when I was 8 years old, and my grandma Dora, who worked with ESL and special needs kids in Denver, brought me to her school's end-of-the-year picnic field day party. I remembered standing there holding her hand in line waiting for the piñata when this really tall kid came walking up to us. I couldn't tell you how old he was, but to me he was like a giant, like Dikembe Mutombo. "Maxwell, this is Bryson, and I am the only person he talks to. Isn't that right, Bryson? And do you have something you wish to say to me?" "Bryson wants a hug." She let go of my hand and hugged him. Hard. I actually remember feeling jealous. It's funny, I hadn't thought about that in over 20 years. If I had known that this was going to be the last time that I would see her, that I would see any of these kids again, I would have said something, you know? I would have said, "Little one, it is in your blood to be a dancer, to be an actor, to be a teller of stories, to stand and sing with your arms out wide. There are so many decisions that you are going to have to make in this life, not the least of which will be what you're going to do with the body and the breath and the backbone and the hands and the heart that you have been given. There is so much that you can do, but I see a dancer in you. I see an actor. I see a teller of stories. Aye, my heart is heavy with the things I do not understand. This world can make your heart feel like an anvil in an ocean if you let it, so don't you ever let it. And no, when the world gets too dark, or too bright, or too loud, or too quiet, or too mean, or too fast, or too slow, the stage is a lighthouse for the brave and the bullied. It is a soft, warm, vibrant, caring, safe jungle, and you will always have a home here. You will always have a home here. Aye! My heart is heavy with the things I do not understand. It was so great, Max. You would have been so proud. Were they mad that I wasn't there? No, not at all. I told them all about your callback and they were really happy. How did it go, by the way? Great. You know, they're actually thinking of doing Peter Pan next year for their musical. They want to do this all again? Absolutely. Oh, and they wanted me to give you this. It was a framed picture of all the kids in their costumes sitting on the stage. They had signed it and wrote little notes with things like, "Good luck. Break a leg, Mr. Max. Thank you for being my friend." I realized in that moment that these kids didn't need me. They probably never needed me. At least not as much as I needed them. And I realized in that moment that these kids, each and every one of them, are Mowgli. Brave, innocent, fragile. And their teachers and paras are Baloo and Bagheera. guiding them, loving them, teaching them, giving them the best life they can before inevitably they have to say goodbye. And this world, this strange, cruel, numb, repetitious world, this world is Shere Khan. So what does that make me? Mowgli, and Baloo, and Bagheera, and King Louie, and Shere Khan. And still a buffalo, I think. Still in search of a herd, still in search of a home.